Sister Helen Prejean.
Introduction. Get your hands in the air and shut up. I had already pulled out my gun. The teller, fear filling her eyes, ran back to the other side of the counter. She had been trying to reach the door of the vault where another co-worker had locked herself in. Now she was running anxiously back and forth as I stood on top of the counter pointing the firearm. I never intended on shooting it. I just wanted her attention long enough to get the money and leave. Crack! The lip of the counter had broken under my weight, and I suddenly went crashing. On my way down to the floor, I sliced my leg along the jagged edges. The teller was frozen. I could hear my nephew Ontario yelling at another teller. He had already yanked the phone out of the wall after she had tried to use it to call the police when we first entered the building with our mask on. I would learn a few minutes later, after nearly choking myself, that he had just sprayed the woman's office with mace. "Give me the keys to the drawer," I yelled, gasping for air. The frozen woman in front of me thawed long enough to throw me the keys and put her hands back in the air. Desperation started to settle in, and as I wildly pulled money out of the drawers and dumped it into the blue duffel bag I had brought with me, that same emotion I felt only moments before we entered the bank washed over me. Then, I'd been crouched low in the wooded area that was about 200 yards from the bank. The trees hid the back road where Fox had dropped us off. Between the heat, the mask, and maybe even my own conscience, I felt like I was being strangled. I wore black shorts, which meant that walking through the woods caused me to thrash against thorns and thistles. Fox was perched on top of the hill nearby with binoculars so we could see the front of the bank. As I stood there being eaten alive by the murderous mosquitoes that reigned over Louisiana summers, I couldn't escape this singular thought. I hate that we have to do this. We really did believe that there was no other option for us. "Shots fired! Shots fired! Officer needs assistance."
I suppose we could have started our story at the end, the awarding of clemency after 20-plus years of tirelessly petitioning the state of Louisiana to see how the extreme sentencing of Rob was further positioning the state as a leader in the mass incarceration of black men and women in this country. The heart-wrenching documentary Time, airing on Amazon with stellar reviews, the Oscar nomination, the shinier parts of our story. But as transformative as these last couple of years have been, as grateful as we all are for what has transpired since Rob's release, the end doesn't do much justice to this true narrative. It's really the beginning that offers a more compelling story. And in the beginning, 1987 to be exact, it was only and always about the love. A radical love that rarely made sense to anyone except us, which has always been fine, because our love and our faith were what sustained us when our lives were being riddled and torn apart. It was this love that gave us strength to survive through everything that happened next. Some may call it cutting class, but I like to say that my friend and I were taking a mental health day. However, Wanda and I needed to figure out a ride back to school to finish the rest of the day so our absence would not be reported to our parents. Unfortunately, at 16, you don't often work out the details of your shenanigans. As a result, she called one of her church members who was home from the Navy to give us a ride. Wanda claimed he was sweet on her and wouldn't hesitate to do it, so I said, "Cool, hook that up." We waited at my house, and just like she said, we soon heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, Rob and his friend were standing there. First reaction? He was fine. "Okay, Wanda, I see you, girl." I let them inside and we hung out together for a bit before Rob drove us back over to the school. I spent most of the time talking to Rob's friend because, Rob was...